Thank you. Very excited to be here. Thank you, Milton, for inviting me this afternoon to speak about what I believe is the most compelling use case of telehealth, and that's mental health. I founded BetterHelp 5 years ago, and the best way to define us is the world's largest teletherapy provider. To date, we had over 30 million sessions between therapists and clients. We have over 400,000 people who got therapy through the platform, and every day there are more than 3,000 therapists who go to the platform and provide therapy online. One of the things we figured out around 2 months ago is that actually we're no longer just the largest teletherapy provider, but we actually now the largest therapy provider. There's no other organization, whether brick and mortar or online, that has this kind of size and scale. Obviously, this is built for a long time. We actually just celebrated our 5th anniversary a couple weeks ago. What you see in this graph is the number of sessions, interactions, messages, video calls, phone calls between therapists and clients on the platform, now reaching almost 1.4 million. And I think what this graph represents is not just the trend and the growth, but also the fact that we got to some sort of inflection point. When we started, it was kind of a weird, suspicious, innovative thing. Today, it's pretty much mainstream. So many people got service through this platform or other platforms of online therapy. People already realize that this is a real thing. You can actually get solution to your problem through these type of services. I want to talk a little bit about how we got here, go back to 2012 when we just started thinking about it. I'm not coming from a health background. This is my 4th company, but the previous 3 were not in health, so I didn't really have the background and knowledge about this, but when I personally was struggling and looking into counseling, I was pretty surprised how difficult and expensive and committing that was, and didn't really fit my lifestyle. And I thought I was kind of alone until I stumbled upon these statistics, which may be more familiar to you guys because you are coming from the industry. But for me as an outsider, that was a surprise that around a quarter of American adults have a diagnosable mental condition every year, but less than 4% actually see a professional that can help them. And that led me to think why we just do nothing or talk to a friend rather than reaching out to a professional. And the reasons are pretty much well known. It's the price and the stigma and the commitment at the time that is involved. And we thought there is a way to close this gap. There's an opportunity to close the gap between doing nothing or talking to a friend or family member to going to a therapist, a couch for 45 minutes a week with an online solution that is professional. It's the same therapist you'd find in a brick and mortar clinics, but also is more affordable, and more accessible, more convenient, and also a lot less of a stigma around it, and it's because it's more discreet. You don't need to go somewhere in the middle of the day. You don't need to explain why you're in a waiting room. This quote is really interesting because it shows how these kind of solutions let people who would otherwise never go into therapy to try it. And the reason why this is possible because we remove a lot of the barriers that prevent people from going into therapy. So I want to talk a little bit about this process. It starts with a user answering around 29 questions. Some of them are demographic, like age and gender. Some of them are the reason why they're looking for therapy, PHQ-9 questionnaire, and also some other questions. And based on this information, we will match them with a therapist from our platform. Our algorithm will look at all the data that we know about the therapist's success with other members that are similar, and we'll do the matching for them. So they don't need to make a choice from a laundry list of therapists. Counselor member will communicate a lot of it over asynchronous text, which is, of course, very, very convenient, and a lot of it will be done on a mobile phone. On top of the text, there's also the more standard phone and video sessions where the counselor and the user will schedule a time and speak with each other through our HIPAA-compliant secured system. Talking a little bit about the users, who are the users that come to us? So first, fix kind of an assumption. It's not for the people who use us are not early adopters. They're not people who are especially tech savvy. It's pretty much all walks of life. We do see some skew to younger ages, people who are more familiar with technology and feel more comfortable with it. But definitely we'll also see that the average age is going up as more and more people get exposed to the service. So it's not just millennials, it's also Gen X and even baby boomers. In terms of issues why people come to us, a lot of it is under the bucket of depression, stress, and anxiety, but also more specific issues, whether it's career, relationship, even sleeping disorders, grief counseling, everything that makes people's life less great that they can be. So we're just a platform, and of course it all depends on the providers who work with us, a pool of counselors. And I want to talk a little bit about them. So we took a very rigorous approach to vetting and accepting counselors. We obviously accept only fully licensed, not even interns. It's either psychologists, a doctor level or master level of LPCs, LCSWs, and MFTs. All of them have at least 3 years of experience. The average is 13. And we vet them very, very rigorously. Around only 15% of people who apply, of licensed therapists who apply to work with BetterHelp actually get accepted. The reason why they work with us is, of course, financial. As part of it, we provide a very consistent and very steady compensation. A lot of times it's very comparable to what they would do in other setups, but it's much more flexible. They can turn on and off their availability. They can get more or less clients. Some work just for us, some work in other places and use us to augment their income. They can reach beyond their geographic location, so some live in rural areas or just in cities where therapy is not that popular. And then now they can work with anyone in the state and also work with the population that they really care about, not just people who come to their door. Larger pool of counselors obviously means better matching. So if you're in Wisconsin and you're looking for a gay, female, older counselor with expertise in grief counseling, we probably can match you with a therapist that is exactly that. So a lot of time we're getting asked about studies and research, and we don't have a lot of time to go into all that. I just wanted to point out one study that was done by the Berkeley Wellbeing Institute and Professor Chickie Davis from the University of Berkeley, because that study was specifically about 520-something clients in BetterHelp and tracking their progress and their performance. I'll skip this one because we don't have time, but this one is really interesting. What it tracked is the reduction in depression symptoms of these people. And what you can see on the left is people started with severe depression, how 24% of them improved to moderately severe, 39% improved to moderate, 15% to mild, and so on and so forth, also with other categories. What's interesting about it is just not just the numbers themselves, but they also compared to how it looks in face-to-face traditional counseling for clients that got this type of counseling. And what they found is the reduction in depression symptom in BetterHelp is actually either comparable or in some categories better than the one with face-to-face counseling. I want to end with this. This is a video that one of our users sent us, and I think it really captures the amazing value of online therapy and why we're so passionate about it.
Talking to her has really helped me a lot. I would definitely recommend people who are struggling with anxiety and low self-esteem to get a counselor like Christy, because she really knows what she's talking about, and she always understands. I've been struggling for a couple of years now, and it took me a lot of courage to actually talk to someone, but Christy immediately made me feel at ease, so I've never felt like it was awkward to talk to her, which helps a lot. So yeah, I would definitely recommend Christy, and I would definitely recommend BetterHelp as well, because you can just open the chat whenever you feel like it. You can let out your emotions immediately. You don't have to wait for an appointment. You don't have to feel like you have to talk in the hour you get with a face-to-face counselor. So this has made it a lot easier for me to actually open up. So yeah, great job, and I would like to say thank you as well, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was awesome there. Any questions? How about in the back?
How do you cross state lines with licensure and credentialing?
Therapists can only work with clients in their state, the state where they're licensed.
And you might have said it and I might have missed it, but do you bill insurance or is it a patient self-pay system?
No, it's mostly self-pay. Clients can try to bill their insurance. It's very challenging. We do work with some organizations, but mostly it's just self-paid.
Thank you.
In your practice, how you scale, like there's a different needs in outpatient, inpatient, nursing homes, all that. So where you mostly is your practice and how you can scale in different areas of the practice, you know?
Well, the typical user of us is not outpatient, is someone working from home. If they get to a point where they need outpatient services, psychiatric services, it's probably not a good fit for us. We're definitely more on the milder side.
Alon, thank you so much for this service. It's such a need. And if I recall, do you also provide some services for individuals who have special needs?
What do you
No.
mean by special needs?
Do you provide services for individuals who have special needs? I just wondered if that.
I'm not sure that's what you asked about, but we have some dedicated services for different populations.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, we have a whole site for LGBT. We have sites for teens. We have sites for it's called Faithful Counseling for people looking for faith-based counseling. So we do know how to cater for different populations, but as your majority of it is just every person with a struggle.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. As a clinical psychologist who is kind of breaking into the teletherapy world, one of the things I've been really concerned about here at the presentation is the reiteration of low adoption rates, you know, and it seems according to what you showed that there was some resistance or some seeming to be insulated from that according to your research. And what would you attribute that to?
I think the fact that we work mostly directly with consumers takes some of this question away, because now it's not an organization where you talk about utilization and how do you make people aware. These are people who reached out themselves, sign up themselves. As Milton mentioned, we do make sure that the service is known through advertising and social media activity and promotions, but at the end of the day, it's the person themselves that needs to make the decision and get service. So the utilization is kind of baked. You don't need to convince them. They're the one who initiated this process.
I have a question about whether or not liability. Are you a covered entity?
We're not covered entity as such. We do provide liability insurance for the providers who work with us.
Okay, and then so is a provider the one that would be sued if it was malpractice?
If he would be sued, then typically they have their own insurance, but they also have us as a backup with insurance.
So
we provide
you're a
them.
technology provider, not anything else, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
What is the average cost for a session? And then secondly, do you have, I know you said based upon certain criteria that you will select a particular therapist for that client, but do you have on-demand services? So if someone needs to be seen by their therapist but they're not working during that time, how do you, what's the workflow for that? Just
Okay, so the first question, the business model we chose is a flat fee, which is not limited by any number of sessions. So you'd pay a fee that would be typically around $200, that we have some financial aid for people who can't afford that. And in that amount, you can have as many text messages as you'd like, and around a session a week with a therapist. We took the choice of not limiting and not metering it, because our whole concept is you have a resource that you can use whenever you need to. You don't need to think about payment. Second question, we match you with a therapist, but if you're not happy with that therapist, you can definitely switch to any other therapist who's licensed in your state and active on the platform.
Thank you so much. They're awesome.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you.